Alright, so today's not really much of a rant as so much as a discussion, even though it's not really a discussion because I'm talking to myself, but you get the idea. I have to do this for a school project because I have stage fright and I will pass out in front of the class if I have to talk for too long. So we're just going to stick to a video, which is a lot safer, I think, for everybody. So as a writer, one of the biggest things to deal with, and is a mandatory thing to deal with, is criticism, because nothing is perfect and you always need an editor. So unfortunately, you have to put your work out there, and that was still is one of the biggest struggles I have. So this video is about giving and receiving criticism, which is never fun. Starting off with giving, one of the main things that everyone needs to remember, I mean, for my creative writing class, because all of you are going to be seeing this, that's somebody's baby that you're holding there, and nobody ever says to somebody, you have an ugly baby. It could very well be an ugly baby, but you don't say it's an ugly baby, because who does that? And if you have somebody telling you your baby is ugly, they're probably not somebody that you want to be taking criticism from seriously. So what is ugly, and going with the metaphor, it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. I mean, it could be a struggle of you have to critique someone's short story and it's romance, and you may not be much of a romance reader and you don't read romance very often. Even then, you still need to do what you can to give constructive criticism, because, I mean, you let them know, I don't usually read this kind of thing, so, and then once you tell them that, they'll know, well, maybe certain parts of the criticism that they give may not necessarily be ones to put too much weight in, if that makes sense. It comes around to you have to list the good things, and that's definitely one of the biggest struggles I think that most people have when giving criticism, because it's so easy to catch something that doesn't work and like hang on it like it's a little guy on your shoulder telling you, oh my god, they did that wrong, they did that wrong, kind of thing. So always try to find the good things first, I think, is definitely one of the best things to do. Look for what's amazing, like, oh my god, this character is awesome, and then maybe go into the characters that aren't so awesome. And when I say not as awesome, I don't mean they're a bad character, I mean they're not fully brought out in the writing, sort of thing. Definitely make the list the good list as long as the bad list, or as much as you possibly can. And there was one time, one of my creative writing professors told me that, because apparently I'm helpful in the sense that I don't want to say what doesn't work if I don't know how to tell them how to fix it. But that's not necessarily something, it's not your, I mean, I do that personally, I don't know if everyone else does, but I definitely hold back on things I don't know how to fix, because it's kind of like being a hypocrite, being like, this is wrong, but if I can't fix it, then who am I to say that it's wrong? But you don't always have to have a solution. And my prof told me that ask questions and let them know, hey, this doesn't really work. And even if you can't find a way to explain how it would work, maybe they already have in mind how it would work. Choking. And they can go from there. Just let them know if it doesn't work. And then most likely, I mean, most of the time, because they're already so invested in their story or whatever kind of work it is, they'll probably already know how to fix it. Just because you mention it, they'll know. Definitely, one of the biggest things that I can't handle when critiquing anybody's work is grammar and spelling. Spelling usually isn't so bad because Microsoft Word is pretty good at that. And I mean, I guess word choice comes into that, but mostly grammar, punctuation being my biggest pet peeve in the world. And unfortunately, I am a grammar Nazi, so the first thing I want to do when I look at anybody's work is take a red pen to it and put in exactly what should be there. But also there's style choices, so my style of punctuation may not necessarily work with theirs, but if it's wrong, I'm gonna take the pen to it. So my biggest struggle is not focusing on the little things like that, because there are quite often things you need to critique on. I have a frog in my throat. For big image things or other things that it's not the small details. Always put a balance of the big and small. But giving criticism, I think, is the easy part. It's receiving criticism that is the makes your eye twitch sort of thing, and that's the next part. Receiving criticism, definitely. I hate it so much. Almost guaranteed, every time I have to sit through a workshop and listen all the critiques that people have to discuss and everything, there's always guaranteed something somebody says that they say, oh, I don't know how this works, or I think this could be worked on, or whatever, and or like this section I think just should be changed, or like something. There's always something that makes me give them laser eyes and say, I hate you, you don't deserve to be looking at this at all, and I get super protective over it. But unfortunately, nothing is perfect, and that's my biggest note on here that I have. I have my notes in front of me. Nothing is perfect. Always be prepared that when you're giving somebody your work, there's going to be something. There's never, ever anything that is perfect. And that's just the biggest thing. And not that I think any of my work is perfect, because it sounds a little arrogant, but it's definitely hard sometimes to hear someone say, especially if it's a part that you love and you're like, this is great, this works, and then somebody, maybe one person, maybe multiple people say, I don't think it works, then you just want to kill them. But you can't do that, so you're just gonna have to settle with just listening to the criticism. That's the second note on there. Shut up and listen. That's a rude way to say it, but that's pretty much what it is. When people are discussing it, well, okay, when we're in workshopping, you're right there and they're discussing it for the sake of you being there to listen. But the biggest point that every creative writing prof I've had has made is when you hand in your manuscript to get published or put something out there, you cannot be there to defend it. You can't follow, like if you publish, I don't know, a poem in a newspaper, you can't go with every newspaper copy and tell people this is the meaning. You have to understand the meaning. If your meaning's not there in the writing and that's what you're trying to get across, then there's something wrong. So you just have to shut up and listen. That's the easiest way to say it. And that can be very difficult. I struggle with that very often. I think just maybe the next workshop I need to sit on my hands and somebody needs to put duct tape on my face or something. Maybe not duct tape. That sounds really painful. And despite most people, I mean, I don't think anyone would ever hand their work to someone that you think they would know in advance that it's somebody that's not going to be mature or nice about their criticism. There's maybe, I think all of us at some point have had somebody that's just outright mean. Usually it's a friend. I mean, in my case, I had a best friend that was like, nope, 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 nope. And I just never showed anything to her again because honestly, if you have someone working on your piece and all they give you is negativity, that just brings down your own self-esteem, and then that could really just kill the inspiration to keep working on that piece. And what's the point of that? So I personally, and I think everyone should, just avoid those negative people. And if you're forced to sit through a workshop with somebody that's awful, just don't listen. I mean, listen, but don't take it to heart. And that's definitely one of the biggest things. Know in advance that your thing is not perfect, and then also know it may hurt. It most likely will. But just those mean people, just, no, don't listen to them. It's not cool. Walk away from bullies. There's no point listening to them. But then also, coming back around to, you may have to critique something that may not be within, like, your taste, like romance. Ugh, romance. Even so, if there's somebody that says, I don't usually read this kind of thing, but it's for a workshop or a class, whatever, you still got to take into account that they are a reader. If they're reading it, that makes them a reader. So if you're writing for the sake of people reading, you should listen to as many readers as you can, right? Because what's the point? If you're only writing for yourself, then what's the point in putting it out there? So even if it's somebody that may be honest with you and say, this isn't the type of thing I would normally read, so I couldn't really get into it, still consider the fact that they're a reader, and maybe because they didn't get invested in it, maybe there's something that could be improved so that they would want to read it, even though it's not something they normally would. Every reader has, actually somebody said once, it was like a warning signal, I think, or something like that. Um, Basically, even if it's one person out of everybody that says that they didn't really go with it, it's still something you want to think about, because there's that one reader that you didn't catch in there with a hook, or whatever you want, however you want to word it. Always consider everybody, but don't necessarily put too much weight into their comment. And that's my last point. You don't always have to accept the changes that they suggest. There's definitely a couple of times in the past where everybody said that, everybody in the workshop, those 4 people, they all didn't like one part that I had done, but they didn't hate it. Like, they said, oh, it kind of doesn't really work. I can see how it would if you fix it a little, but they all agreed that it shouldn't really be in the story. And I completely disagreed with them. Probably now, if I went and looked back at that story, I might agree with them, because your opinions and views of things will always change. So always look back at old writing. You never know about that. But I felt so strongly about it. It's like, no, I love this. I'm not changing it. And then also, it was a case of, at the time, I didn't know how to write it otherwise. So you don't always have to accept the changes, but definitely consider why you wouldn't. If it's like, no, this is the word I want to use, but if everyone says that word choice is a little funny, I think you should just change the word. Like, get a thesaurus. Thesauruses are amazing. I hate carrying one around when I want to go right at a coffee shop or whatever, and there's no internet, but it's freaking amazing. But not all those changes. You don't always have to accept changes. Usually, though, the whole point of putting your work out there to be critiqued is so you can make changes to make it better. More often than not, it makes it better. I think that the main point that I'm gonna come around to is kind of the same point as I make in all my other Rant a Week videos, is be considerate of the person that you're interacting with. That's the biggest thing. I mean, be mature about it too. But being considerate. We're all human, and we may not all agree with each other, but it's always discussion, and we're reworking things that improve ourselves. So definitely be nice to one another. That's what it is. I'm gonna quote Ellen. But that's the main idea. So there you go.